We'll call the Property Grounds Committee meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Roll call.
Mr. Blackstock?
Present.
Dr. Miller?
Present.
Mr. Barber?
Here.
And I will also note that we have Mr. Davis and Mr. Warren in attendance.
Thank you. Do we have any revisions, additions to the agenda? Any members? Okay. All right, here none. Approval of agenda.
Mr. Lee.
Motion by Dr. Miller, second by Mr. Blackstock. All in favor, raise your right hand. Unanimous. Okay, moving down to item 5, the one we've been waiting for. Item A, courthouse and jail facility update. Mr. Hicks.
Okay, we got Mo, the architects here this evening. They're gonna give you an update.
Okay.
I think we met several months ago and gave you some of the early numbers, and there was some discussion about what size jail we needed, where the jail could be, and so they've gone back and run the numbers. They've done a little more work on it. So
Okay.
I'll update you tonight on about where we are.
Yes, sir.
The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, well, thank you. We have a presentation prepared. I'll run through it. Obviously, if there's any questions any time during the presentation, please interrupt me and we'll answer those questions, get them addressed. The cost information is at the very end of the presentation. I have 7 hard copies here. Would you like me to distribute those now?
Yes, sir, that'd be fine.
Okay. Some of them are double-sided, some are single-sided. So as a bit of a recap for those who are a little new to the process, we'll go through the space needs summary. We'll talk about a little bit about the existing site and the site features. We're going to specifically talk about the courthouse, the programming of that at 87,000 square feet. We'll run through the programming of the jail, which we program at 190 beds. That include 172 general population beds and then 18 special purpose beds. We can run through what that means in a second if you'd like. Run through some conceptual site plans associated with the jail. Then we also have created a reduced size jail, and that was a result of our discussions at the most recent meeting back in January to do a reduced size jail and kind of continue the arrangement that the county currently has with Blue Ridge Regional Jail, either by renting beds or by joining the Blue Ridge Regional Jail on a permanent basis as a full-fledged member. And we'll look at some of the cost information with regard to that. We're going to talk about the schedule and the next steps. The next steps would include presentation at your Board of Supervisors work session in June, and then preparation of a draft report, and then presentation to the Board of Supervisors in July to your full board. Any questions so far? We're good? All right. So we did a complete space needs analysis of everyone who is currently in your courthouse. That included all of the court functions, circuit, general district, and JNDR, the Commonwealth's attorney, as well as the Commissioner of Revenue and the Treasurer. We also looked at the 911 center and the magistrate and the sheriff's office, but that was just court security, okay? This is the existing site that you have. Excuse me, Mr. Warren.
No, you're fine.
That includes, the site on which the existing courthouse now stands with its 2 expansions, the Moses building, your 911 building, the maintenance building, and then the 2 school buildings, which are down at the east end of the site. One of those is currently occupied by school admin, the other by some school administration functions. And this shows the topography on the site. There's about 52 feet of fall from Main Street to the far southeast corner. I know that's pretty remarkable in a size site as that, but that's what amount of fall you're seeing over your existing site. Question, Dr. Miller? No? Okay. So that, whatever improvements are made on this site, we're going to have to contend with that current grading, okay? Whether it's through a series of retaining walls or working with the site to allow maybe a at-grade basement to open up and other floors to be above grade. And some of the layouts we'll show you with regard to the court facility are using that to its advantage. If we try to do a jail on this site, it's going to work a little bit at a disadvantage because jails want to be a single-story building. Okay, when you start working vertically with jails, you start to lose a lot of efficiency, and you also start to introduce some safety and security measures, working inmates up and down stairs, things of that nature. So the first layout you see here is for the court facilities, about 87,500 square feet. how that would sit on the site and the associated parking with that. And you can see that upon build-out, we're basically taking up the majority of the site. It also impacts the 2 school facilities, the 911 facility, and the maintenance facility. All those would have to be relocated to other places within the county, okay? We'd also have to relocate the communications tower. We've shown that right here for now, okay? Obviously, that location can be determined as development proceeds, but currently it sits right in the middle of your campus, and would be a pretty difficult obstacle to work around if left in that position. We've located the new court facility basically in the rear of the site, okay, with a vista onto your main street, and then also addressing the entrance drive right there off the court. We've also shown a temporary landscape area here to the west of the building, which would serve as future expansion. Because as we know, this facility at 87,400 square feet is planned for the 20-year need. And we all know that Pittsylvania will exist far beyond 20 years. So we want to create the option to expand this building beyond its initial build out to accommodate those needs. And there you see it over the aerial and see which buildings it touches there. So this is the existing 911 facility right there. This is the existing maintenance facility. You see we're starting to impact onto that existing school facility here. Here's the parking for that facility. And the jail can exist forever on this site with that new courts building. It would impact the parking and the drive aisles a little bit, but the 2 can coexist on the same site. Okay?
The existing jail or new jail?
The existing jail can exist on the same site. And these are the these are the functions that are programmed in the 87,400 square feet. So it's circuit court and clerk, Commonwealth's attorney, shared court, that would be like break rooms, things of that nature, staff toilet rooms, general district court and clerk, JNDR court and clerk, the CSU office, that's the court services unit of JNDR, it's probation and parole, juvenile probation and parole. Then we have adult probation and parole and the sheriff court security. We are not moving any of the sheriff's functions out of the Moses building. Those would all stay in the Moses building for the long term. What would that court facility look like? So on the first floor we'd have the functions which need the most public interaction. That's the circuit court clerk, and paired with them would be general district court. You have your big, what we call cattle call for your traffic court days, things of that nature. So you want to maintain the majority of your public population on that first floor to avoid having to circulate them vertically through the building. And then immediately adjacent to the general district court would be the general district court clerk. The second floor would be occupied by 2 JNDR courtrooms, the JNDR clerk, the JNDR court services unit, and at the far right you see there the Commonwealth's attorney. And what we're proposing is the building would face south, so the entrance would be here. You see here identified as security, which would protect the back of the building and the east of the building for security. And the third floor would be occupied by 2 circuit courtrooms and some extra space for the circuit court clerk. When I say extra, this is space that would not fit on the first floor given the other functions that are on there. So this would be like archive storage, maybe the clerk's break room, things of those that don't have interaction with the court and their staff on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis. You also have the court support functions up here, as well as judges' chambers, jury assembly, things of that nature. And then as I was mentioning earlier about the grading on the site and how that will work to our advantage with regard to the court, we're going to put the court security on the lower level, and it would daylight to the east, okay? So we bring in a vehicular sally port, we then enter a central holding area on that lower level, and then circulate the inmates vertically throughout the building. And in Courtroom Design 101, okay, you've got 3 circulation paths in that existing courthouse, or in that proposed courthouse. That's for staff, that's for visitors, and that's for detainees. And those 3 paths should never cross except for when they reach the courtroom, okay? Do those 3 paths cross in your existing courthouse? Yes. Is that ideal? No. Does that happen often throughout courthouses in the Commonwealth? Yes. Happens all the time. People make do, people make operational changes to accommodate those facility deficiencies, okay? So it's nothing to panic about, you know, but it's something we want to correct if we do a new court facility. And also enable that the court can expand beyond this down the road. So you may ask, well, Tony, how would that happen? We'd want to build any new courtrooms around this court. So any new courtrooms would happen in this space right here, and that's why you see this dashed line, okay? This dashed line would represent the edge of that sixth courtroom. And that could be a general district courtroom, that could be a circuit courtroom, that could be a J&DR courtroom. But I think those 6 courtrooms would accommodate Pittsylvania County for a very long time. And then any additional space would basically saddlebag off those courtrooms. Okay? Any questions yet? We're going to now move on to the jail. So the 172 general population beds would break down as we've described here. There'd be 2 maximum security male day rooms, each holding 20 cells, for a total of 40 beds. 1 female day room containing 9. Medium security would be 2 day rooms containing 26, for a total of 52 beds. 1 female containing 9. And then minimum security would be 2 dorms containing 20 beds, for a total of 40, and 1 female dorm containing 10. And then there's also community custody. Community custody is like work release, okay? So that would contain 6 beds each, 1 for males, 1 for females, for a total of 172 beds. Special purpose is basically SEG cells, okay? Segregation, and then we'll, I'm sorry?
Go ahead. Segregation.
Segregation. So these are keep separates. These people who cannot behave and obey the rules of the jail and must be kept separate for disciplinary reasons, must keep separate for informant type reasons. Maybe they have gang activity and we don't want them associated with other gangs within the jail. Could be for their own protection. You know, maybe it's a former law enforcement officer who for some reason has been incarcerated. This might be a place to house them. So that's who goes in special purpose housing. And then medical, obviously, you know, that's also considered special purpose as defined by the DOC. And that would be a ward containing 2 beds for males and a ward containing 2 beds for females, and then 2 pressurized cells for things like tuberculosis, things like communicable diseases, and we want to keep those inmates separate and not to spread those diseases throughout the rest of the jail population. So any questions about the bed projections? Currently, you're housing upwards of 110 here in your existing jail and sending about 50 to Blue Ridge Regional. So we're not seeing a big increase in your jail population, okay? What we are seeing is deficiencies in your existing jail that cause safety and security concerns for both the inmates and your staff.
And what's your planning horizon on the bed count?
15 years. So, to provide a 1-story facility, which would be the recommendation for a jail, on your existing site, you see the impact that would have on the site, okay? It basically takes up the majority of the site. If we were to move it outside of the town of Chatham, it would be basically taking up a 15 to 20 acre parcel. So that's not only just the jail building itself, but it's all the parking, it's all the recreation yards that we would need, it's also all the stormwater facility that we would need. We've got some floor plans to show you what that jail would look like. So this is the overall facility. You've got a plan of it, but then we'll also look at some of the individual components. I don't know how much detail you want to get into, Mr. Chairman. But the public entrance is shown here at the bottom. Immediately adjacent to that is the staff area. We have the vehicle sally port off to the right. That would be where intake would be. And then basically everything south of this main corridor here. Everything south of this main corridor is support and administration type spaces. Everything north of that main corridor is your bed space, your dormitories and your day rooms. So this is your minimum security female, your special purpose female, your minimum security male, and you see this is all dormitory space here. And then we've got an enclosed rec yard here at the rear. And this is his cell.
This is direct supervision or indirect?
It can be run either way, Mr. Blackstock. We're currently setting it up as indirect, but obviously you could put somebody in that day room and make it a direct supervision. Does everyone know the difference between direct and indirect supervision? Yes? Okay. So we're setting it up so you can run it either way.
Yeah, but it's crucial that if we want more manpower paid for by the state, that we want it set up as direct.
Direct. Yes, sir.
And certified as direct.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And we would do that if that would be your desire as we move into the planning study phase. Currently, no documents have been turned into the DOC.
Okay.
So, as the process would work as required by the DOC in order to get reimbursement for jail facilities, jail facility improvements, we would submit a community-based corrections plan needs assessment. That needs assessment would be the bed count, okay, what we just looked at, 172 beds. We would also do what's called a planning study, okay? That planning study would explain to the DOC how Pittsylvania plans to meet that need, okay? When you submit the planning study, you've got to have a plan. It's not option A, B, or C. You don't give the DOC a choice. You tell them directly, we've selected this site, we're going to put this facility on it, and here's the anticipated cost. Or we're going to build a smaller facility on this site, and we continue to house or join the regional jail. So that's what the planning study needs to dictate. And we'll be happy to move forward with that planning study, given some direction from the county. So we also looked at what a 3-story option would look like. So taking that same jail footprint, but instead of doing a 1-story building, we're now talking about doing a 3-story building. Obviously, it has a much smaller footprint and could be co-located with the courthouse on the site. Okay, so we're on the far east side of the property now. What it doesn't accommodate, however, is all the parking associated with the jail. So at that point, we're either talking about structured parking, parking deck, or finding parking off-site, i.e. not within this parcel, to meet that parking need, that zoning requirement. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it makes sense, but I'm looking at a 3-level, and you said we've got safety procedures there with them being on 1 floor.
So let me explain a little bit about what that means. Safety and security obviously is of the utmost importance in any jail facility. When you start taking inmates up and down stairs, up and down elevators, that's where the safety and security. Any opportunity that inmate has to walk down a stair, if he's got ill will against whether it either be a staff member or another inmate, that can create issues. How's it going, Lewis? So that is the safety and security concern. There's also operational concern. Obviously, if you've got a food operation, that would typically be on the lowest level. So you're not having to transport storage of goods, your freezer and your refrigerator, all that wants to be on the lowest level where you have your loading dock as you offload supplies. But then you've got to get those food supplies up to the inmates in the day rooms and the dormitories to be fed. And that's currently the most common practice throughout jail design. We're not walking all the inmates down to a cafeteria where they would eat anymore. They're eating in the day room. We want to minimize their travel throughout the building. So when we start introducing that vertical travel, that goes in direct conflict of that minimization of the travel.
Just put them below ground. Anyway, just kidding.
Got it. So how would a building like that lay out? On the first floor, as we just discussed, would be mainly all the administrative functions, the storage needs, the laundry, the commissary, the food service would all be on that first floor, because those have all the interaction with the outside world. Intake would also be on that first floor. Second floor would be where you'd have some day rooms, some dormitories, some cell space, and then that third floor would be the remainder. So we also looked at the direction at our last meeting at a reduced size jail. And that reduced size would be 60 beds. So what does that mean? That means we need to find 110 beds outside of this jail facility. Okay? And that 60 beds could be manipulated. You know, it could be a little higher, it could be a little lower. Obviously, the smaller you build it, the less efficient it becomes from an operational standpoint. You know, there's sort of a sweet spot on how many inmates can be overseen by one jail officer. And if we get that too low, then we create inefficiencies with regard to that. So what we've laid out is 2 day rooms, each containing 7 double bed cells and 1 single bed cell for a 30 bed facility. And then for females, 2 day rooms, each containing 7 as well. That can be divvied up as well. So right now we're showing it all as cell, but it could be back down to dormitories. It could be 3 male and 1 female. It could be some community custody in there, you know, work release. But the main intent, as we discussed previously, was these would be people either awaiting trial or on community custody, okay? Either awaiting trial going to court, and it makes sense to keep them here in Chatham so that they don't have a very long drive to get to court the next day, or they're here to work. You know, they're here providing services either to the county or to other agencies and businesses throughout the region. Does that make sense? So we need to determine what that sweet spot is. You know, we had, like I said, landed on 60 beds. Could be a little more, could be a little less. And as we drive that number down, I think we start to lose efficiency from a costing standpoint. So this facility also could fit on this same site with the courthouse. Its parking need would be greatly lessened because you don't need as many staff to oversee 60 inmates as you would 160 inmates. Make sense? And we also did a plan of what this facility would look like on a single parcel, okay? On a standalone parcel somewhere out in the county. It would require basically about 5 acres. And what would that facility look like? Many similarities to the full facility, but obviously on a much smaller scale. We're showing here 4 day rooms, all celled for now, but any of those could be stripped out of the cells and put in to dormitory space. But if we're going to hold it for these waiting to go to trial folks, we need the cells because we really don't know what we're dealing with in that short window from incarceration, from when they're arrested to when they go to trial, right? Could have a maximum, could have a medium, could have a minimum security detainee. Kitchen would be on this level, intake would be on this level, laundry would be on this level, all those functions. We only have a 1 level facility. So in terms of our schedule, we're here presenting to the committee this evening. The next steps would be to prepare the draft report and then to present to the Board of Supervisors at your work session in June 18th. Then prepare the final report and present that to the full board on July the 16th. And then submit a final report to the county on July the 23rd. So those are our next 4 steps. Now let's look at some, well, before I go on, are there any questions before we start looking at costs?
Just one more question. You said when you lowered the bed count that it lowered the efficiency and costs. So what are you saying right there? I mean, we're looking at it as Mr. Blackstock said. There's so many that we get. You get a certain fund from the state.
Right.
We would be lowering our intake coming in from the state.
Yes, sir.
So how would that lowering your bed count is going to create lower our efficiency?
Well, when you start to get day rooms and dormitories below 48.
Maybe I didn't hear you right, but anyway, go ahead.
No. You heard me right. That's exactly what I said. Well, there's certain functions in the jail that you must have, whether you have a jail that houses 1 inmate or a jail that houses 700. Those are facilities like kitchen, laundry, intake, commissary.
I understand that's an infrastructure we have to keep in place. I understand.
That's right.
I was just looking at the numbers you were talking about right there.
And when we start reducing the size of those dormitories and those day rooms from, say, 48 inmates down to 16 or even less, one officer can oversee 48 inmates, okay, one jailer. So if you've now got 3 day rooms of 16, instead of having one officer to oversee 48, you're going to have to have a minimum of 3 in direct supervision to be one in each of those 3 day rooms.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I got it.
Okay. And then, obviously, it's not just the inmate, or excuse me, it's not just the sheriff's deputy that's in there. You got to have 3 plus another to accommodate the 24/7, 365 shifting of the jail.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does now.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
All
That's
right.
it.
So when we start reducing those day room sizes down, we start to lose efficiency. We want to make them as large as we can up to the DOC standard. So let's start looking at some costs. So the first cost is, this was what we presented back in January, of an 190 bed facility, basically 80,000 square feet, at $350 a square foot, a site work allowance of 15 acres, and this is the site that's proposed basically out of town, okay? We have other costs there of different need, obviously commissioning, moving expenses, land acquisition we're saying is not required. We're going to find a parcel that the county already owns. Obviously that would change, but that would not be the case. And we recommend about a 10% budget contingency. So the total cost of that in May 2019 dollars is $40 million, give or take. Yes, sir, Dr. Miller.
I do have a question. For my own information, what is commissioning?
Commissioning services is additional services on top of the basic architectural and engineering fees. So we design facilities and systems, MEP systems, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems to go into the building. A commissioning agent can then come in after those systems have been installed by the contractor and do what's called commissioning them, okay? What that means is he will look at the plans and specs, then go look at the equipment and make sure that all the set points have been done appropriately, make sure that they are operating their optimal efficiency, and do a once overall of the system and be there for the system startup. Now we, Mosley Architects, as part of our basic construction administration services, do that to some level. But this is a much deeper dive to make sure that all the I's have been dotted and the T's have been crossed by the general contractor in the installation of the systems. So much as if when you buy a car.
That's what I was going to say. It looked like a docking fee to me, but anyway.
It's not a docking
Exactly
fee.
what I was going to say, Tony. I appreciate it.
It's not a docking fee.
I know. I'm just saying.
It is a quality control check by a specialist in the system installation who would give it a once over to make sure that the contractor has not left a dangling bolt for you to find 10 years down the road. Okay? You know, I think the running joke was for many years that, you know, disgruntled employees at Detroit manufacturers would dangle a bolt if they were having a bad day in the middle of the car door, so the customer could hear that noise for many years after they bought the vehicle. This commissioning would be to avoid that sort of thing. It's that second set of quality control eyes to make sure you got exactly what you paid for and it's operating exactly as we designed and intended for it to. Does that make sense?
I much prefer I don't mind the vehicle rattling, but that jet that's got foreign objects that they leave in there on these brand new, I have a problem there because I don't want to ride that one down.
That's exactly right. We're all in agreement on that. Any other questions with regard to this cost? All right. So the next costing is for the 60-bed facility. And much as we talk about the efficiencies with regard to size of day room, we also have efficiencies in terms of size of construction. So as we drop from an 80,000 square foot facility down to a 26,000 square foot facility, we feel that you would be paying a larger per square foot cost for this smaller facility. And we estimate that to be about $400 a square foot. Now, we just bid one in Henry County. I don't know if you guys have your ear to the ground. It came in about $450 a square foot very recently. Okay, that had a lot of site work associated with it that had to be dealt with before they could get this building under construction. So we feel fairly confident in this number moving forward. But obviously, the longer you go out and the more site constraints you put onto the project, you know, if you get a Superfund site or a site that has a lot of topography to it, that's going to send those site costs and perhaps building costs skyward. Understood? So when you start adding all the other costs in, we're figuring this facility is about $15,200,000 facility.
And you said that was on a greenfield site? That's on the new site?
It's on a greenfield site, yes, sir. Now, we're using this figure here and the $40 million here as sort of placeholders. So we're basing it off of the greenfield site, but we're also saying, well, you know, that would be a pretty close approximation for if we try to push it down here in Chatham as well. Now, obviously, there's going to be some asterisks associated with that. So, Mr. Davis, you know, we talked about the inefficiencies. If we have to start going a long way off to fulfill our parking requirements for zoning or acquire property to do so, that's going to drive that cost higher. Okay? We have to do structured parking deck. You know, a at-grade parking space costs about $4,000. By the time you get it graded, place the under treatment, you know, the gravel, and then pour the asphalt on top of it, as opposed to a parking space in a parking deck is about $20,000, about 5 times the cost. Okay? So those are all things we're going to have to weigh as we move forward with any kind of improvement plan. We also start to look at operational costs. Okay? And this is a bit of a stab in the dark. Okay? Because there's a lot of impacts to operational costs, not the least of which could be transportation. Okay? But in terms of, everyone's got a copy of this, so you can follow along. You know, the top row is the current conditions. You know, 110 average daily population at the jail and a 50 daily population at Blue Ridge. And you're currently paying roughly $26 at Blue Ridge per day per inmate, for approximately $474,000 a year. And you recently had a presentation on this, so I can go pull it up. We have got a copy of it if you want to look at to revisit those numbers. As far as your existing jail, the average daily cost for an inmate is $105. Okay, that's based on the operating cost of $4.2 million over the course of a year, and the average daily population. Any questions about that? So we use.
I think that's an important figure for everybody to get in their mind. Housing a prison in Chatham right now is costing us $105. When we send them over to Blue Ridge, that's per day. We send them over to Blue Ridge, it's costing $26 a day per inmate. That's a big difference per day per inmate.
Yes, it is. What's not represented in that is obviously the transportation costs.
Sure.
Because I don't know that Blue Ridge transports. Do they?
They do.
They do. Okay.
What happens is, after you transport an inmate, if you remember Blue Ridge, after Blue Ridge takes custody of the inmate, they're responsible for all transportation
Okay.
to the member jurisdictions.
Okay.
Now, the arrangement currently with Pittsylvania County, that can or cannot, doesn't have to be included. It's a contract.
Okay. That's something that you might want to work out moving forward if you become a member, is how that transportation is handled, and where the responsibility begins as they leave the Pittsylvania County property or as they arrive at the jail. So we use those two figures as sort of planning documentation for trying to come up with the operational costs for new facilities, and also being a member or being a leaser of beds at Blue Ridge Regional Jail. So the road labeled number 1, that's the new Pittsylvania County Jail on current county-owned site in Chatham, 162 beds, $105 per inmate per day. Daily subtotal is $17,000. Total cost $6.2 million. Okay.
That's operational cost.
That's operational cost. Yes, sir. Operational cost.
What's our current operational cost for the jail per day? I mean, that needs to be included. That's what we need to think about, because if we go into $6 million just operational costs, not debt service,
That's right.
We're currently paying 3, then that's above the debt service that we're gonna have to pay for the courthouse, and it's gonna have to be in your budget from then on.
Yeah, we think, Mr. Blackstock.
It's in a jail cost report.
I think it just went up to 100, it went up, we just got the cost report recently, and I think it just went up to 110 is our daily operational costs.
It'll tell you the total cost, and that, it's online.
Yeah, I've seen it.
But what you'll have to do is, when you get to that point, it's not only the debt service you're gonna be paying on the courthouse and or the jail, but this is gonna be additional monies that you're gonna have to come up with to operate the new jail.
So if we move to a site outside Chatham, the operational costs would be basically the same. That's what we're figuring. Now, obviously, that doesn't take into consideration travel. So if we start to separate those two facilities, the courthouse and the jail, travel would have some sort of impact on that. And we looked at a new, smaller Pittsylvania County jail. This is for workforce and for those waiting trial. We talked about work release, workforce on a site outside of Chatham, but within the county, location to be determined, and we continue renting beds from Blue Ridge Regional. So using that same $105, come up with a cost of basically $2.3 million per year, and using that same $26, you come up with a cost of just south of $1 million per year. Okay, so you're basically doubling the number of inmates you're sending to the regional jail. Okay, everyone on board with that? Okay. Then if we did a new, smaller jail and joined Blue Ridge, okay, we got the information from Blue Ridge today that they're, based on the 2018 audit, their cost per inmate for the members is $41.28. Okay, so you were getting a bargain at the $26 right now. The issue with that is you don't have that guarantee. Okay? Not being a member, they have the ability to say, no thanks, not today, when you try to send an inmate there. When you're a member, I think you have privilege to send inmates there. Okay? Any question about any of that? Okay. I'm
But
gonna
it's
look
still cheaper, $41 a day.
at 110.
Than 110. And we're doing it currently for 26. That's because they basically that's covering their operational costs, not the debt service on the new buildings they had under that. That's the difference in the cost.
But we did, in our current agreement, negotiate a certain number of beds that they have to take.
I think it's 50.
Yeah, even from the.
Yes, sir. That's right. That's right. How often is that renewed? Do we know?
It got renewed less than 3 years ago.
All right. So is it a 3-year?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I haven't looked at it in a couple of years since I got it.
I drew up a contract that was used for the county. And there's been some modifications to it, but basically, it's only year to year. They can bail out of it at any time over there.
Okay.
But as long as Blue Ridge has 500 empty beds over there, they need these inmates to keep their costs down. Because that $41 a day is escalating. They didn't have the revenue coming from Pittsylvania County, and it varies from 500 to about 800 or 900, depends on how many inmates we house over there. But with 500 empty beds, and it hadn't changed much since I've been retired almost 7 years. When I retired 7 years ago in 2012, they were running around 1,200 inmates a day total in all the jails. I checked a while back and they had 1,150 with our inmates in there. So they have empty beds. And right now we're getting a sweet deal. But if the inmate population changed, they could tell us to get lost. And if we had built a small jail, we would really be in trouble. You see,
You answered the question.
You wouldn't have guaranteed. The
I
only way
see.
you would have guaranteed beds is to join. And we did allow Amherst, when I say we, Blue Ridge, because I was there, we allowed Amherst and Appomattox to join later because they went through the same scenario we going through now and realized they couldn't build Florida jail on their own, so they were allowed to buy in as whole members, meaning that they own the structures that were put up over time. And they were allowed in pretty cheap to buy in. In fact, Blue Ridge, we had the money
Again, to control that cost.
Yes, but it's expensive. This is expensive business, but you don't want, I don't think long term you want to get in a situation where that you're not guaranteed jail. You know, if you built a smaller jail,
Right,
We gotta have a contract.
and you didn't have, you'd want a long term contract that was airtight,
Right.
or you'd want to join.
Well, I think I mean,
You answered the question.
where's the downside of joining versus a long-term contract? I mean,
Well, it's transportation and how you work out over here,
Does-
getting inmates to and from court. What you normally do in transportation is if a deputy or a state trooper arrests somebody in this jurisdiction, they would take them before a magistrate, and then they would have to transport them to, if you didn't have a jail here, to the nearest facility, Blue Ridge facility. You'd have it worked up. They have intake on site. You know, when you have intake now in jail, it's not like in the old days. You need nurses. You got 24-hour nurses there. You got people coming in with MRSA that you read about, tuberculosis, people that are coughing.
measles.
You got, yeah, because it's not getting, it's even getting worse. But it's a lot of costs that you have to include, and you got to look at the big picture with this thing.
Didn't
There's no
Halifax-
bad answer.
Didn't Halifax eliminate all of their jails?
No, we built a new jail in Halifax, and we added on to it.
No, I mean, but it's operated by Blue Ridge.
Yeah. Amherst.
Halifax doesn't operate a jail at all.
No. Amherst does not, Appomattox does not, Campbell does not, City of Lynchburg does not, Bedford, which was a city and now has reverted back to the county. It's southern jurisdictions. Did I get Campbell in there? It's Halifax, Campbell, City of Lynchburg, Bedford City, Amherst, and Appomattox. None of them operate a jail facility. And if you talk to the sheriffs, they're happy about not having to operate. But you do give up the manpower that's in the jail, that's allocated from the comp board that goes with the jail. And
That he has some flexibility of.
yes, he can pull them out and put them on the road if he wants to. And if we build a smaller jail, you could work a deal out where the sheriff could retain control of that. And in some regional jails, they do that. It's different types across the state, where the sheriff would operate the local jail and you would keep awaiting trial people that are going to and from court here, and then community corrections type inmates who are work release, who go out every day.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people that are arrested for especially misdemeanor crimes where they put on work release, they go to and from work every day. And you don't, and the courts don't want them to lose their jobs. It's a very important part of programming for jails. It gets complicated.
Tony, before we take it to the full board, we might want to add on current conditions, transportation costs. That is not reflected in the 26 bucks. We're eating that.
Because we transport them over there.
We sure
Are we
do.
bringing them back to court here too?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So that's not in the $26?
No, sir.
Yeah.
Does this $105 that's in local rate include any of the insurance costs that we have to pay for these?
Yes, sir. Yeah, that's an all-in cost.
That's all in. And Blue Ridge doesn't provide with the $26 the insurance for those folks.
Well, there's no real insurance.
Yeah, it's not really.
Well, if they get sick or something, they have to be taken care of, is what I'm
We
saying.
pay it. You pay
Yeah.
it.
We end
we
up
pay
paying,
on
in
top.
addition to the
Correct.
26, that's what I'm saying.
Correct. Correct.
But now,
If they take it outside, the way that works is, unless it's changed, if the inmate receives services inside the jail, it's included in the cost.
Right.
But if you send them over to Lynchburg Baptist, over to the
They
hospital.
sick set.
Right, you have, the bill comes
We get
separate,
those, yeah.
yeah, we get them. Now, the $41, that's all in, that's everything.
That's what I was gonna ask. That's all in,
That's everything,
even if they have to go to Lynchburg.
yes. If they have to go in a hospital, the $41 a day includes, that's the total cost to the jurisdictions that are members of Blue Ridge. What happens is, they put together an annual budget every year. At the end of the year, they settle up and say, okay, the total operation of the jail cost, I'm just throwing a number out, but when I left, it was about $32 million a year. They take that number and they say, okay, Bedford, you had, on an average day, you had 40 inmates in here. So your percentage of that is 8%. Campbell County's is 10. City of Lynchburg is 40. And so and that's how they budget from year to year. But now, you can have at the end of the year come up short. If you have a bunch of inmates and you can have cancer, 2 or 3, or heart attacks, and you gotta pay and there's a negotiated rate with the hospital now. You used to pay what's called rack rate. But now they negotiate with hospitals or use Anthem's rates. And those rates are included in the total cost.
Do they self-insure that? Or do they?
There's no insurance. There is, no, Anthem.
It's just paying cash.
You pay
Just pay it out of pocket, all out of pocket.
You just, jail.
So they get the discounted rate of Anthem? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. The jail can participate that way. When I was there, I went directly to some of the hospitals and negotiated a direct rate of 60 to 70% of whatever it was. If a bill come in at $100, we paid $65 instead of going through Anthem, because Anthem gets a cut too. So what I did, I cut Anthem out.
Right.
But I had to have staff for that, and that was something that I did myself a lot.
But they didn't have any kind of insurance for like a catastrophic aggregate where it had a $100,000 deductible for an individual?
It costs so much,
Okay.
it's not.
Well, usually those policies that would have those type of accommodations to them are not as expensive, but they insulate you from that person that has $1 million claim.
But the issue with that is, it's not, when you look at the jail population, they are much sicker than your general population, because they're your drug users, they're people that, I work for a company now, well, I did up until October, I'm not doing much anymore, I'm retired. But it was certain jails and places in the state of Virginia, or even on the East Coast, if they have a high rate of meth, those people have, if you have a lot more people in jail with meth, they have a lot higher overall cost of medical needs. So when you bid that jail, you have to figure that in, that they've got a bad meth rate in that area. It's not just cancer or heart attacks. We're talking about people that you see that teeth eat out.
That's what I was gonna say, you don't need a lot
These
of
people
instant meth for that.
don't have the resistance to communicable diseases that normal people have, so they're more sickly as a whole. So it gets expensive.
I may have misspoke. Could our medical costs that we incur in Lynchburg above the $26, would they be counted in our $5 or in our 105? Do you know, Mr. Blackstock?
They count it somewhere.
And what about the transport? Back and forth, would that be?
It's a line item in the jail cost report that would give you that.
But it would all be rolled up into that.
It wouldn't give you the
105.
transport.
Yeah, it would have to roll up.
It's got to somewhere.
Yeah.
It would be
So
in your,
those uncovered Lynchburg costs are inflating our local costs. And does that make sense?
I think that makes sense.
yeah, they would. And it'll show you in the jail, you can get your jail cost report.
Okay.
I can help you with that.
Yeah, we definitely need
It's not going,
breakdown numbers. It's not gonna be much. No, I agree with you. It's not gonna be much, but it'll be.
What you gotta remember is some of the cost in your jail is fixed cost. You gotta heat the same space, whether you got 100 inmates in there, if it's a space, or 10.
Right.
The heating.
Yeah, it's fixed cost.
This is getting back to that efficiency.
Yeah.
And when he talked about efficiency earlier, one of the things that I would recommend highly against would be building a multi-floor jail. And I'll give you an example.
That's what I was
If
thinking.
the elevator breaks, and they do break, you've got to take those trays up and down the steps, 3 levels. And you know, if you've got 192 inmates in there, you're serving almost 600 meals a day. In fact, you may have 192 beds in there, you may have 320 inmates because you double bumped it. So every time a meal comes around, you got officers running up and down the steps. You can't tote those food carts up and down the steps. They tote those things covered. And then you start getting health department issues because the temperature is not right on the trays. Those things are looked at very close in the state of Virginia. You laugh, but that's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been there.
Well, what about them bologna sandwiches that guy named Joe out there in Texas gives, and then he gives them 1 square meal a day?
He's dodging the feds.
I don't know.
Well, anyway. I mean, you know, he's doing it, man. I mean,
He's actually no longer a sheriff. He lost.
imagine that.
Well, he had a run of 20 years.
He's like 90 years old now. I've met him.
Well, you know, we've talked about it before, about what it's gonna cost to build it. But what's really alarming is the operation.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause that's, you know, ultimately at some point in time, you're gonna get it paid for, you hope. But them operational costs,
You know, in some ways, it
they're
pays
not
for
gonna
itself.
stay right there either.
In some ways, it pays for itself. If the difference between our operational costs today and tomorrow have enough difference over the life cycle of this new building, it may pay for itself.
Could.
Yeah, you said something interesting. There's gotta be a logic to it. Why did all these other places get out of the jail business and do that? What does it cost? Do we have a breakdown of what it costs to actually let Blue Ridge run your jail operation in the county versus us doing it?
Great question, and I met with their, wasn't their board, it was their board chairman and their senior staff about 3 months ago. And they're unequivocally do not want to run any jail in Pittsylvania County. They said, if we build a jail, that's on us. They'll be happy to transport prisoners up, but they are not interested in running a satellite jail in Pittsylvania County.
They spread thin now.
Yeah.
When you travel, the administration is how my office was in Lynchburg, the main jail, but you go to Halifax, then you go to Campbell, you get another big jail that built at Amherst and Bedford. They don't want to travel any.
More than an hour
They
and a
don't want to
half.
operate, yeah, you were on the road a lot. But, I wonder, Tony.
And they don't have a need, a great enough need that we could push that issue.
No, I think so.
Because they got 500 beds.
Yeah, they don't need beds.
Yeah.
They've got excess beds right now.
Last thing they want us to do is build 60 more for them to run.
Yeah. And is it any, if we looked at recently in the last, I think 12 months, we had to evacuate the jail here.
But they would take, excuse me for interrupting, they would take let's say our number's 160.
Right.
They would take all 160.
Yeah.
But what do we do about,
Transportation.
no, what do they do about the
Transportation.
night when they bring in 5 for drunk in public?
Well, some jails, they don't do it, but other regional jails do, and you could work that out. You could have where a team, when I say a team, people were here, located here, and they transported those people after they were processed to the jail. Like every 6 hours, you would load them up and take them to, if it was any arrest, and carry them over to the regional jail. But then you have to bring them back to court the next morning. And normally what you do, you bring them back to court, they put in holding cells, and you pick them up at noon or at the end of the day.
So we could keep just the facility on a minimal basis for the overnight that we got now.
It still has to be certified as a jail. That was the question I was going to. Have we looked at it, I guess the cost efficiency would be the term of renovating the existing jail? Because we could move the inmates, they've proven they'll take every inmate. We moved every inmate over there just within the last year, so we had to evacuate.
Yeah, it had been flooded.
But if we, over a period of time, 12 months, went in and renovated existing structure, which is 36 beds, double bumped to 72. That jail over there, you'll see a rated capacity, it says 36, but it'll house 72 with 2 in each cell. They all are cell, there's no dormitories over here in the existing jail, cells in there. And each cell has 2 beds. Now, before I left them over here, it was 72 beds over there, and we had 150 some inmates. So they were all in the floor and in the day room. But you could keep 72 beds, 72 inmates over here, and 3 segregation cells, and then some holding cells downstairs for court. But to renovate the existing facility and join Blue Ridge, and let the sheriff continue to operate this facility. You know what the fixed costs are for operating the facility, because we've already been doing it. I know that's not what y'all want to hear.
Well, we want to hear whatever makes Pittsylvania County the most efficient, safe and secure, and sets you up for the long term. We didn't look at that, Mr. Blackstock, because upon initial investigation of your existing jail facility, the consensus was the systems are shot.
It's beyond, but if you've moved all the inmates out.
Right. When I say the systems are shot, it's the MEP systems. The mechanical system,
Right.
the electrical system, the plumbing system. The plumbing is deteriorating under the building.
It'd have to be gutted.
It has to be gutted, and you're pretty much taken back to the shell, and everything taken out. So.
And it probably costs as much or more to do that as it would be to build a new structure the same.
Everything underground.
Well, so we'd be better off maybe to bulldoze that and build a
Right.
similar size structure. But because of the footprint, you would have a multi-level facility.
Well, or you wouldn't. And that's what we showed back on this slide. Is a one-story facility.
But the parking is a problem.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
And how many acres would it take to build a facility right outside of town or something like that? And how many acres do we have up there where we bought that money with that federal money from Mike and them and use it now? It's not enough.
We have excess acreage at the pet center.
Pet center.
How many?
We have 10 extra acres, don't we?
Yeah, a lot of it's wet. I bet there might be 5, but it'd be tight. There's also a piece of property
Behind social services.
Exactly, behind social services.
That would probably be 5.
That would be a nice location.
Close
Yeah.
That would be the most, it seems to me, the most cost, just sitting here talking, you'd have to do some numbers, but most cost efficient is to build a smaller facility outside of town. And not crowd, parking's already bad here in Chatham. Anybody that comes in here every day knows.
Can you go back one slide to the next one? Yeah. So, since the press isn't here, and I know Mr. Ford's not going to run and tell on us, there is this parcel. And if we had that parcel, everything gets fixed as far as keeping everything on one campus, because we have the sufficient parking. I've already talked to Chatham Hall.
You're talking about Danny Hill, on the other side of the school board.
I think it's Pecan Street.
Everything stays on that as far as the jail and the courthouse. We still got to put the school system somewhere.
They would go in the old courthouse.
And they go in the old courthouse, which
The
is
current
model is, and the treasurer's office and the.
We have it.
Commissioner
upstairs.
Revenue.
Yeah, Commissioner Revenue.
But that parcel's valued at only $20,000.
And the current historical courtroom will just be a historical courtroom.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which would be nice if the board of supervisors could move in there, but there's so many restrictions on the furniture and fixtures and how it's set up. I don't know if we can put it on. But if we got that little, I can't remember how much it is, acre and a half, whatever, from Chatham Hall, it might be a doable deal.
But they've expressed concerns about having the bucolic campus looking at a prison, right?
Oh, well.
It's a little bit, excuse me, Jim.
It's more than looking at it.
Yeah.
It's, how a couple hundred girls.
Right.
But at the end of the day, less
Sure.
prisoners and more secure prisoners
Right.
than they are today. So I think we can get through that with them. We've had that conversation. And anyway, they're in a leadership transition right now, but the board meets in July. I have to go and talk to them and see if there's any interest.
Chatham Hall.
Think the town of Chatham will assist in any of the finances of this to keep it in town?
That's your district, Mr. Wayne.
I don't know, that could be.
I wouldn't have said that.
Bob and Charles' districts got like
I'll
that.
check,
You never know.
yeah, it's everybody. I'll check with Will and see which one they got.
I got you.
How many, the smaller jail, this footprint, how much was that jail? 15.
30 something.
But you still got to increase the operational cost. And you got to decide whether you're going to try to join Blue Ridge or you're going to roll the dice and try to continue the $26. I don't think rolling the dice is a smart idea long term.
Do you have any idea what it costs to join Blue Ridge?
They'll give you the numbers.
They've given us some numbers.
We've actually got that on the last page.
One of the
Last
things,
page of the presentation.
one of the things you need to remember, even when you look at these projections of inmates, that these, in every jail, everybody that builds a jail has to do these projections. But the legislature only has to do a couple of minor changes in criminal law in 1 year, and it can change the inmate count in jails across the state. If they decide that, how bond can be changed, people that are arrested, and you add an extra day to every one of those people, it pushes your inmate days up. So, you know, when you look at, one of the things you need to be aware of, when you look at your projections of inmate populations over time, you can look at a graph, but if they do something in Richmond, a little weird, which right now they're going the other way. You know, the pendulum swung this way, it's to lock everybody up. Now we find out we can't afford to lock everybody up, swinging back over there now. Also, minimize the drug crimes too.
Yeah.
So that last page has some very large numbers on it. And obviously that's 30 years of operational costs. We talked about, you know, whenever we talk about life cycle cost analysis, we refer to an iceberg. The top of the iceberg that you see, that's the amount you pay on bid day. The amount under the water is your operating costs, your maintenance costs. Everything has to come with owning that facility and running that facility. So what's not shown here is obviously the dollar cost of money, or the time cost of money. We've added a 1% escalator on the operating cost to try to facilitate that a little bit. We have not put any kind of financing on the jail building itself. So obviously that would have some kind of time component as well, and a larger facility would have a larger mortgage or financing component with regard to it. But we gave this to you to try to get a more accurate picture of the real dollars we're talking about and the impact the operating cost will have. This does show the $41 a day, $41.28 for the operating cost if we were a member. And it shows the buy-in cost of $2 million, $2,095,000 to join Blue Ridge.
And and we hadn't talked about that, but look at the very bottom of page 34. You see that full buy-in cost?
Yeah.
$2 million, one-time cost to get in.
For 100 beds.
No,
Or unlimited.
unlimited. You can send all the inmates you want over there. That's a one-time buy-in cost, you owning the buildings and being a full member. After you buy in, you're going to end up paying them $41 a day, but it's all in cost.
And we get a pro rata share of the assets.
Yes.
And they'll finance that buy-in.
If we don't,
That's what I was gonna ask.
if you don't have a $2 million, if you don't have a $2 million, they will finance it for you. When I was there, we had the reserves to do it.
That adds much more tax than commercial rate.
Oh, it's at zero interest.
Zero.
That's why, that's what I've been yelling all along. If we get this number, I'm glad y'all finally got it. But that's a sweet deal. Buying in $2 million, what is it, 95?
Yes, sir.
That's a pretty sweet deal to buy in.
So how many beds are we gonna have then? You're gonna have
You have unlimited beds.
That's what I'm saying. If everybody's going to the regional jail, So we don't need that property, we don't
Well,
need
it's only
anything, but
issue
you're
though,
going.
when, that's what Tony we were talking about earlier, Joe.
So in talking with, you
If
know.
the deputies arrested somebody in your district
Mhm.
tonight,
Probably
got
me.
Gone for 4 hours.
yep, you would have, unless we arrange for them to bring them here like they normally do, and then have transportation set up, and Blue Ridge is not going to do that for you at their cost, because they don't do it for anybody else. We would have to keep, when you transport inmates, it's normally 2 people in the vehicle, it has to be that. So you run a van, you'd have to keep 2 people around the clock, basically, to transport those people back and forth.
So there's gonna be.
If you didn't build a jail at all.
There's a figure you've got to figure out on how many you're gonna accommodate at one time, just depending. If you had an anomaly like 5, like, you know, were arrested for, is that correct? Is that correct?
What if you did away at the bottom and did the
Hey,
others?
is that correct?
Well, and we'd be bringing
We
them.
would still have to have a facility to house.
A lockup.
Yes.
A lockup,
Yeah, that's
basically,
what
but
we call a
if
lockup.
not without the jail.
Right, but when you have a lockup, then you
So
start.
it's temporary.
You kind of pull all those those administrative and support facilities, laundry, kitchen.
Again.
Yeah, and that's where we start talking about those inefficiencies.
And why we didn't go with a lockup type is we can't get state participation on 25% of the cost of anything less than a fully certified jail.
Right.
So of this 15 million, because we're building it with all the right levels of male and female and blah, 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 we can go to General Assembly and get 25% of that 15 million covered.
I'm just trying to connect all the dots on all directions to weigh in. Go
So
ahead.
this is where we dropped the ball a long time ago. To encourage localities to join a regional jail, for years the state paid 50% of the building cost. And they changed it about several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. Mr. Tony, you know, I know that too. I knew they were talking about it. They changed it. We could have got in, they paid 50% of the upfront cost. And what you did is you went and bought short-term money to pay that. And then when the state certified it, they paid 50%. The state had 50%. They covered 50% of your cost, paid it off. And then you structured the other 50% over however long you were.
Where'd Greg go? I don't know if we actually dropped the ball. We couldn't get a third partner at one
Right.
time.
Well-
Pennsylvania County tried to
Yeah,
get
I'm
that.
not
right?
blaming any, no,
Okay.
I'm not throwing y'all.
It just didn't work. Let's put it
No.
that way. We looked at that, but we didn't have the partner. I forgot which, that's what I was gonna ask Greg. It was one county, but it wasn't, well, we couldn't get the third partner, so we couldn't go that way years ago.
But when Blue Ridge, I'm talking about when Blue Ridge was formed, and there was no money here then, so it wasn't an option.
Well, that's true too, but we couldn't get a partner either.
But
It might have been.
the cost, when you start talking about costs, the construction cost is minute to the operational cost of long-term cost.
I had one question too. We was just talking about, all right, let's just say we went with Blue Ridge and we wanted to do a limited amount of inmates here, as we said, arrest and move. Could you just eliminate the bottom floor, instead of turning the floor, could you do the top 2 floors for that purpose and make it electrical under the building without digging the floors up? You know what I'm saying? I don't know how many bids you get in the top 2 floors, but
Yeah.
wouldn't it be a lot cheaper than going in there trying to just put everything underneath? That's what I'm saying, storage and electrical and everything.
Well, it's open.
What's the security?
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar.
Well, and you got another thing, the state has jail building standards. And so, when you build a jail, you just can't decide, like down in North Carolina, y'all can build whatever you want to when it comes to a jail, most of the time, as long as it meets building code. In Virginia, if you want that 25%, you've got to build it to the jail, and companies like, and that's why you want a company like Mosley that's familiar with those standards. I'm not pitching the ball for y'all, but it's true. You want some company from Virginia knows those standards, then you get in a lot of trouble.
North Carolina doesn't have the jail standards because they also don't have the reimbursement program. So, because the state of Virginia has the reimbursement program,
25%.
25%, they have the jail standards that says basically you build it to these standards with regard to how much rebar is in the walls, what the ceiling material is, how many air changes you have. smoke removal system wherever you have inmates, things of this nature, all driven towards safety and security. And also longevity of the facility. They don't want you making it out of paper mache so that their investment of 50% only lasts a very short time. They want you to get maximum benefits, maximum value out of the dollars that they expend as well. So that's why those jail standards exist. I did want to put in a plug. When we presented these options, and we didn't do the small options, the courts have not seen that, but Judge Moreau made a big plug for maintaining some sort of facility here for rehabilitation of Pittsylvania County citizens. She feels, mental health, things of that nature. You're seeing a lot of that in court today. You're seeing a lot of that in jail today. And by having some sort of jail facility here in Chatham, here in Pittsylvania County, she feels that would be best for the citizens who do get arrested here.
Peyton, I have a question. You probably answered this. What about that prison they give us that we didn't use, we give back over there on Concord Road?
Yeah.
That was one we was talking about. Well, we was talking, the camp 15. We was talking about using it for a actual jail. What about the minimal jail? I guess when they'd be considered minimal Missouri and send the hardened criminals to Blue Ridge, would that work for that purpose?
I'd have to look. There's all kinds of deed restrictions on that property, and that's a good thought.
I think the problem was we were trying to
We didn't
use it
use
as
it.
our jail period, and I don't think that worked. But as far as short-term incarceration, that might would work. If they let us have that for $1, but I mean, I'm sure we got to upgrade. I'm not saying we can go to jail for $1,
But the
I think
state wouldn't give us 25% on that, because it wouldn't meet their jail standards.
We
And they
just
gotta
have to run the
certify,
numbers.
and they gotta certify it for you to house inmates there too. It still has to meet jail standards.
So
You
you
can't
can't
just go
just-
and put a building and put inmates in it, it has to meet the jail standards to do that. The, cost, first of all, what you said about Judge Monroe, I sat on that committee, and so did Mr. Warren, and it was obvious to me that she's adamant that occur. But they also is part of what we do need to look at as our citizens. You need a place here for work release, which is part of that, because you don't want everybody that's arrested and sentenced to jail to lose their job. I mean, sometimes they want to put people in jail for 30 or 60 days. There's some minimum DUI laws on the books. And you lock people up, you don't want to send them over to Lynchburg and they can't get a ride to Danville because jail doesn't take them to Danville. And the person can't keep their job. So, Judge Moreau's concerns are that's something we need to.
She's also expressed concern, if you remember, about the fact that currently females do not have access to the work release program.
Here.
Right.
But that, they do over there, they have in the new jail that we built right before I retired, we have a work release dormitory for women.
Right.
And I had them put it in there because women, you lock more and more women up now. When I first started in jails here, we would get 1 or 2 women a month in Pittsylvania County. Now, when I left Lynchburg, we had 100 and some women around, and the population was growing every day. And we housed them in Lynchburg and the new jail in Amherst County, which is basically the same size as the one in Lynchburg.
So I guess what we need to do going forward, to digest this information, we need to get numbers. I guess Mr. Smith and Wood will actually be our best options, or give us some options. You okay with that, Elton?
That's what you.
Yeah, we need to make a plan, and Dr. Miller, because
Tony and them have really, mostly architects,
That's
done
right.
a really, really good job with this information. I sit in on these things a lot, doing consulting work. This is a really good job. And to get that figure from Blue Ridge and bring it in here to us, because that's key about buying in what it would cost.
So in our previous meeting, we also provided figures on all the other facilities. So this top line, or the second line, the new jail facility, that's what pretty much we focused our conversation on. I did not prepare these in your packet, but I will send them to you electronically so you have them. So these are also some big numbers, but these are facilities that are affected by the jail. and the courts if you would make improvements on this property. So, new court facility, new 911 facility, school board, commissioner of revenue, communications tower. We've developed costs for all those, and then we've also started to look at, if we started projecting those into a CIP, in 2022, we need to relocate people. In 2024, maybe a new court facility, what that would entail, and then in 2029, a new jail. So, all pushing toward getting that new CIP, and you can identify what the years are, and then we can escalate those costs out to match the year, based on however you want to go out about implementing it. But the idea being that, we set the figure, and then when you get to the figure, the money's there, based on your CIP plan.
I'm certainly not trying to belabor this, but.
Nope.
Is there magic, no, stay on that slide.
Okay.
Is there magic between which goes first, court or jail?
There is not.
Because the jail, to me, seems like a much more pressing need. I mean, the courthouse is full, but the jail is dangerous.
Right. So the only effect that would have, Mr. Smithman, obviously, is who's affected. So if you build a new jail, who is that going to displace on your current campus if you keep it here?
Right.
If you build it on a remote campus, it doesn't affect anybody. All these other projects can stay. They're not affected at all.
And you can settle in with your costs and see where you are, and then you can build your timeline out from after you do the most critical.
I think Stacy was a lot less concerned about the courthouse than she was the jail.
I agree. I agree.
But
And we have an elevator that doesn't work. I mean, the place is failing every day. And to think that it'll make it to 2029, I wouldn't bet on that.
If you went out of town and built,
The 15 million's doable.
That's a good point.
if you
went out of town,
it wouldn't affect anything. In fact, it would free up some parking space right away. You build a smaller jail and join Blue Ridge, then you would know, you could settle into those costs, and then you could do your timeline based on the economic development growth as to what you'll grow forward over time, and your debt service you could carry.
That is a huge plus for putting it off-site.
You said it's laying behind the social services stuff?
Yeah.
That would work.
I don't know if we own enough, but there's enough out there that might require some.
I think we'll take a close look too, just for looking sakes, if we ought to look at back of the pet center.
Yes.
We need to find out how much of that 10 acres is viable, because if we don't use it for the jail, once you do the courthouse, there could be other needs down the road. And you need to know if it's viable 10 acres, or if it's viable 5, or,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about having some other needs when it's happening.
The only problem,
Maintenance.
one of the things you may get into out there is because it's so close to a school. The school's right there.
Well,
But-
I'm not thinking about the jail as much as I'm thinking about
and
the
grounds,
other
Maintenance
things.
on
The maintenance, the
911.
911, even the school system potentially.
In planning.
Because if you put the school system out there, then you can put those other things in the existing building.
I'm with you.
I mean, the old courthouse, you basically got enough room for the school system and all those other offices if you remodel it.
Yeah, the only caveat with that, Richard, is, Mr. Hicks, is 911.
Yeah.
So 911 is an essential facility. It requires a certain type of building construction that is a little more durable and resilient than a
We have some nice
standard
sites
building
suitable
construction.
for that.
We've also reserved the
pad outside.
pad
armory.
outside of the old armory,
Well, let's keep in mind that there are some similarities between the majority of that courthouse space and the jail in relationship to the structure and the problems it's had.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just
I
saying,
understand, yeah.
you got to think about all those things.
Okay. What more information can we
Our
prepare
new
for you?
courthouse is
And
an old courthouse now.
One question Mr. Hicks asked earlier of me is, in preparation for the work session in June, what you want presented and how do you want it presented as far as the time constraints? I know we've had quite a lengthy discussion tonight, but Mr. Hicks said that typically in your work sessions you have 15 minutes. So we want to really...
Or 30.
All right.
30 times.
I mean, shouldn't we go ahead and eliminate the multi-story option? Maybe the first thing to do is eliminate some options.
Okay.
Well, that's what I agree with. I feel like we ought to have a running plan now so that they got something to, to work on now.
I mean, listening to everybody, I think we all realize that's way out of our spectrum unless we can break it down with else. And I like to join in the Blue Ridge, which I was sitting there thinking, well, join Blue Ridge anyway. I mean, period, and become a member, because we're going to have that anyway, any option we do, I would say, unless we're going to use it. But anyway, I mean, we could do a consensus, what do we want them to bring back? Because there's no need doing things that we're not going down the road to do.
I agree with going with the regional. I mean, I understand it, but you're looking at a smaller facility also, and I like that right along, because I'm looking at cost as well, and then you're looking at for maintenance costs forever. So I'm just saying, I think maybe a smaller facility on either 4 or 5 in 2 locations we got, as well as going with regional. Tony wouldn't have to worry about the regional cost, but he could work on the smaller jail if we were looking at that. That's all. I agree with that.
I would, Mr. Barber, I'd like to see them have better numbers on that 105 and 41 as far as the insurance side and all that goes, because, I mean, it makes sense to me. I think I would suggest to the committee, I'm not a member of the committee, but to the committee to also be sure that the judges and Sheriff Taylor are in the loop on, all of this. Did they get a copy of this?
No, sir.
No, we just got it today, so.
No, sir. They have not seen the cost. They have not seen the smaller facilities.
They ought to be provided a copy, in my opinion.
Well, we'll send it to them and also announce the work session.
Yeah.
Their attendance.
Pretty well good. I'll tell you something else I'd like to bring to that meeting too. What the cost would be on each presentation per annual cost, because some of them there's no way we could. I mean, it's
What's in here?
I mean, from the county standpoint, like $5 million per year. Was it in there? I missed that part.
Yeah, he's got the operational cost in.
Because you brought up something during the budget cycle. Anything we did to do this, we're going to have to raise revenue and tax form because you don't have the money to cover that obligation.
So in June, what decision do you need from this board?
We don't need any decision. We're going to try to wrap up our report. Now, our report doesn't include a community-based corrections plan or planning study. It doesn't include the needs assessment or shipping any of that off to the DOC. If the county would desire that we do that, we kind of need to get on the stick because the deadline for that is the end of the year.
But when you do that, that starts a clock ticking.
It does.
Because if you don't use it, you have to redo it. And I don't know what those things cost now. What are y'all charging now to do this thing? I hate to put you on the spot.
Yeah, it's around $100,000. Well, the needs assessment's already been done, so you can take that part out. It's just the planning study. So the planning study is 60, something like that. But we need to figure out what the site is. Without a site, we have no planning study. These fictitious documents, they may not be made a planning study. The DOC wants to see the site you're going to be on and the real costs. So, you mentioned the site behind the animal shelter and the site behind social services. Do you have surveys of those already? Can we look?
I know we do it.
We do it.
So, if we can take that survey of the pet center and see how much is buildable, how much is eliminated by wetlands, and how much is buildable, then we can determine, would this fit on it?
I think it'd be the labor for the pet center. I think we just found a way to cut our costs.
Parolees and pickles.
You laugh, I brought that up.
I know. Listen, I ran it up the flagpole too.
Amherst County, we took inmates to the animal shelter in Amherst County, and they worked over there every day.
I tried.
Going down to that and me is VOTEC fit well.
The school goes.
To answer your question,
I don't know how that's going to be perceived by the public. I don't know.
We don't need any decision in June unless you're trying to get a planning study into the DOC.
And what's your time frame to do the planning stuff? 6 months?
4 months, once we have a site.
But you can provide us information in June, and then we can
need to pick a site.
mill over it, and then you can.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The question is, do you convene another property committee with the sheriff and the judge in between?
I think you got to.
Before the June meeting, and make the June meeting your decision?
I don't think we do.
I don't
I
think
think
we
we
can
can
do
move
that.
that fast on
The
the side.
pro to this is all the things we don't have to spend money on to do, is moving off site, in my opinion. I mean, we're talking about big money right there. If you look at that graph, the things you would have to do if you put it here.
Well,
And-
I'm gonna yield to you on this, because you've got so much experience in this field. But right now, it seems exactly like we're all saying. But in thinking outside the box, Elton, if we did it, say social service or even the pet center, we still need to figure, I mean, we need some input on, because now we got transportation costs on our 60 days
Same board of that.
of getting them over here and back. And, you know, I'm just saying that there's gonna be cost. We gotta make sure, we gotta make sure we get it right. I don't wanna,
No, you can't, that's exactly right.
I don't wanna be surprised later.
Well, in the first part you would have to do, I would think, would be go to Blue Ridge and see which kind of arrangement, if we join, that they will allow us to do. I think they would be very flexible to let us in, because it really wouldn't affect their operations, what we did over there. But you need to talk with them and say, we're thinking about, I'm just throwing this out, we're thinking about building our own little jail, the sheriff continue to run it. We house as many awaiting trial and community service, community corrections functions that we can over here. And we join y'all, and we think we're gonna send you, because they need to plan 100 inmates right now, but we'd be full apartments. You gotta remember, whatever the per diem is overlast, what you would pay. You pay the $2 million and
Well,
but then you separate, then you've got the increased operational cost of a jail over here. Because right now, that jail is staffed with our they have emergency positions he's getting from the state. Those will go away. And he may be using them somewhere besides in the jail, when normally sheriffs do. I mean, there's
yeah, because we
nothing
got
wrong
1,000
with-
square miles to cover.
Right, and so they grab anything they can.
And that's
But
why.
he may come back to us and say, okay, you know, but I've been using 6 EC positions in the field, are y'all willing to pay for those? If you are, that's gonna be $300,000 more, because time you pay a deputy's salary and benefits is up to about $50,000.
And that's what I'm saying, we need
Per
hard,
year.
we need harder numbers to make the best decision possible. And if we got, let's say we had a 60 bed facility, 72, it doesn't matter, let's say we just got 60. And we're full members, so we can send them all we got.
Right.
Why wouldn't we typically, and I know your number's 40 and 48 or whatever to the magical, one of the magical numbers about cost.
Per day, yeah, per day room.
But let's say, why wouldn't we ever consider, we get approved for the 60 day, we get certified, we got comp board stuff coming in. If we had a total of 160 and we sent up 120 of them, so we got 40. So he could still maneuver some of that and get maybe a person to cover.
Don't they adjust those allocations of personnel based upon your average daily count?
No, not after the certification.
Not after
Gotcha.
certification, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, the second thing is this.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me for us to pay $105 if we can send them up there if we're full members and get it for 41.
It's another thing that comes in, and we did it at Blue Ridge. If you say that you're gonna build, based on jail standards, a 60-bed facility, every cell that you have, as soon as they certify it that day, we put the lug nuts in the wall, lug bolt, to bolt another bed up there. Instead of having one inmate to a cell, you have 2. They don't care, unless it's changed, Tony. They don't care. So what you do when you build it, If you build in a certified facility, let's say for 60 inmates, you're not gonna get 120 because some of it's gonna be dormitories like in the Army or the
Right.
Navy or whatever. Just celled areas, or single cells, you can put 2 bunks in there. And I mean, that's been going on all over the state for years.
You're triple bunking now.
Yeah, some places triple bunk.
You're triple bunking in your existing jail. But to answer your question a little bit, Mr. Warren, also, why wouldn't you just send 120 to Blue Ridge? I think, and I'll ask Mr. Blackstock to jump in, it gets back to that efficiency issue. If we're gonna run a kitchen.
I
and we're-
understand that, Tony, but here's our problem. I mean, the sheer mass of Pittsylvania County, the approximately 1,000 square
Yes, sir.
miles, necessitates the sheriff doing exactly what he's doing, which is using some of those people. So sometimes, I understand completely what you're saying about if the number happens to be 48.
Right.
If we go below it, we may not be as efficient, but we may be more efficient because we're covering a greater need outside.
Agreed.
That's what I'm
Agreed.
saying. That's
Agreed.
all, that's where I was getting at. I understood exactly what you're saying.
I get your point now.
Those conversations would have to be.
With the sheriff?
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, the final report that goes to DOC, could it be
The
stretched?
planning study.
Yeah, could it be stretched to December 2020?
That's up to this board, we can stretch it out. But when you submit that,
Yeah.
the
I know
clock
you said
starts
that
ticking.
clock starts,
I think before we do any submissions or think about that, we need to start looking long-term finances and what we got coming in the pipeline financially. Because this is not gonna be small. This is gonna be several $1 million a year onto the budget, even if we go with the small stuff.
That's a great point, and I think that's vital. We need to have some of those economic development wins that are not hypotheticals. They're on the books. Same thing with, the pipeline or anything else that might generate revenue.
But just an example would be, I know when they came to us about the pipeline, long before y'all got here, but they told us that we were gonna get about $1.9 million. You were there.
2019.
Yeah, and it was gonna be 2019. And last 2019, we hadn't received a penny. And the last time we heard those estimates were around 1.4, I think.
1.2.
And it keeps dropping.
Yeah.
And so, even if the pipeline was here, it would not cover this project. It wouldn't come close. With a small jail in joining Blue Ridge. So, we need to, and we've got some, everybody knows we got some things in the pipeline, but, and it's not that you just stop because certain things need to take place. We could be doing some of the planning and working with Mosley to prepare.
Getting ready
But
to
not
get
pull
to-
the trigger on that planning study until we have some wins with, and you assure the judge and the sheriff that the jail is first in the pipeline, and as soon as we land a couple of big fish, we can start moving on the project. Because if you could say with debt service, on, what, $15 million?
Well, you gotta figure 12 million, because we're gonna get
Yeah, you can get some from the state.
some of it back, then we gotta pay,
25%.
yeah, which is 3750.
Long term.
Yeah.
But then you've got the increased operational cost, and you pay in Blue Ridge, instead of $26 a day, you're going to 41 per inmate.
Is there much difference in the operational cost?
Yeah, I'm puzzled as to why that number goes up so much.
Here in the county?
Yeah.
It's because a lot of it's already fixed costs.
But you're already paying that though, but that's already in your budget.
Yeah, but it's in that $105.
Yeah.
It's all your staff, or most of that staff goes.
Tony, if I'm reading this right now, on 110 average locally and 50 at Blue Ridge, you're saying currently, at the $26 rate, is 4.69 million?
Yes.
And you're saying down here, if we do the smaller jail and we become full-fledged members, I'm looking at this at 3.8.
Yes.
So actually, we could, if everything held true and these are accurate, we actually gonna save $800,000 a year.
Provided your operational costs.
Doesn't change.
Can drop when you drop from 110 inmates down to 60.
Well, no, I'm staying the same at 105. In
Yeah,
your,
yeah.
in your deal.
But when we talk about operating the jail,
Yeah,
so operating the jail right now, we're talking 4.2 million.
I understand that.
110 inmates in a 36 bed rated.
36.
Yeah, it's
double
still
bunk
per
72.
person, it's still per person.
Yeah, so we've
Yeah.
taken that overall cost and done it per person down to get to the.
I mean, I would certainly hope from an efficiency standpoint, a new facility, utility-wise and everything should be much more efficient than this thing over here.
What we run.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Yeah, you would think
Yeah.
if we got a $800,000 cushion in there, call it that, we ought to at least be able to be neutral.
It's gonna be bigger per square foot than your existing facility, because it's gonna have a lot of programming space that you don't have now. You know, I think your programming and indoor space for inmates is one room right now.
We got a problem.
So.
We got a big problem.
So that would be increased, but that's peanuts compared to feeding and watching inmates.
Well, already, Ronnie, I mean, Elton, you really get this, so bear with me a second. We're also taking, in this scenario, 50 people out of the 110, and we're sending them to Blue Ridge. So we're going from what we're estimating right now at 105 down to a cost we know is pretty accurate at $41.
That's right.
So,
It's fixed.
yeah,
I mean, you know what it is.
yeah.
Blue Ridge is not gonna do any more building. The cost, the debt service is already structured, everything's already there. This buy-in, you know, basically.
So their operational costs could change though with salaries, benefits,
Sure.
utilities.
Well, everything does.
Yeah, upkeep on the building and, yeah. Potentially.
But the good thing is, if you join Blue Ridge, just like the last jail they built, it was space to add on another optional housing units at the Amherst Appomattox facility. It could grow if it had to. So if you get in there, it protects you long-term financially. But the option with building the smaller jail I think the sheriff would like that. I can't speak for the sheriff, but any meetings I've met, he would like to keep the same jail he was operating, and he would like to keep some of his deputies, and the judges would like the ability to have some a little more control over what programs are offered in the jail. It's not just work release, you can have drug classes and all kinds of stuff.
Dr. Miller, do you have a question?
Well, as I listen, I think the idea of a smaller location also.
Do you have what you need, David, to get with him to bring back? We'll run a little late.
Yeah, I think Kim and I can refine some of these numbers about the impact to us.
Is that good with everybody?
Would it make sense for us maybe to put some of those numbers together and you have a meeting with the judge and the sheriff?
I think that's a great idea.
We'd rather for them to hear it from us than the press.
We can definitely do that. In fact, we'll ask Judge Monroe to convene that group.
Everybody good with that? Kind of really appreciate you got a good conversation. It was a great conversation tonight. I think very well.
You're wonderful, Joe.
Thank you, sir. We'll take the presentation and pare it down with Mr. Smitherman and Mr. Hicksell. Okay. To narrow the focus and maybe take out some of those other options so we don't have to cover them in community.
I don't think, we don't need to go into a lot of depth in the public meeting in June. You don't need to get in the weeds going with the staff and the judge and the sheriff.
Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, moving on, request to donate property item B. Mr. Hicks.
Susan.
You're up on 5B.
We got, two people that have, contacted Vince Short, and I think they wanna give us some lots. You got copies of the two lots, they are both vacant lot, they all, they're.
Are they 5 acres?
Not far enough. About like 8/10 of an acre, I think. Done about 6/10 of an acre, I think, but, we just need to know before we, contact these people back, do you have an interest in them donating?
Well, do they join any county-owned property or anything?
We take them
I thought we could
Yeah, that's what I'm-
take them and then sell it.
Rick, can you build on acreage this small?
You can pass. Yeah, you can pass on that one.
About 0.32.
Richard, is this mature timber on these things?
No, not really. I mean, they're not big enough to have a lot of timber on them.
That's over near the old 97, isn't it?
No, that's beside this lot. I don't have got all
Yeah,
that.
that's in your district, ain't it, Bob?
And it's falling.
East Whit Road.
It's not even there anymore. It's falling.
That one is,
What's this big facility right here in Garrett? Do you know what that is? A very big building right here, that one on East Whit. You familiar with that, Bob? Is that old 97 facility right there?
no, old 97 burned.
The picture you're looking at doesn't relate to what Rich was talking
Oh,
about.
I'm on the wrong page.
I think that's for the last.
I'm sorry, because I was looking at this and I was like, hey, that looks good right there.
That's our school next door.
I got you. We was looking at Mr. Ford property, I was on the wrong page. All right, where's the other property? Let me get on the right page.
Your first one is on, let's see, Ringgold Road, and if you leave 58 heading north on Ringgold, it's on the left, probably a fourth of a mile before you get to the old depot. And there's a house right there at 800 Ringgold Road. It's a nice house, and you got 3 lots before this one.
Y'all done any research to, when somebody starts trying to do something,
Well, this lady's out of Washington State.
but is it, we looked at the property and is it a dump site or?
Notice, they're just natural state sites. I mean, they got trees and grass and weeds on them.
Was one person trying to give us 2 lots?
2 people trying to, donate 1 lot each.
Are they current on the taxes?
I think so. This lady out of Washington State, she just doesn't want it anymore. It's just, 3,500 miles away.
It's gonna cost some to tear this building down.
There is no building on that lot. That's next door. I don't
It's a
have to show
bad
the primary
property.
photo, but it's not.
I
It's
mean,
next door.
well,
There ain't nothing good near this place. I know where it's at.
No, it's-
That's definitely on phase
It's
one.
got a-
why don't you contact the realtor and try to list the
Yeah.
property for sale, you can get it $500.
Get rid of it.
You gotta be, we might ought to be careful about that. We need to look into this before we say. If
I don't
live
think that
30
property on, in the black, I don't see where it's any value, period. That 4/10,
Yeah.
I mean.
It's an ugly lot.
It's an ugly lot.
Probably won't.
I don't think we do.
I think you think it's exactly the way I
Yeah, I
am.
don't.
Well, they contacted Ben Shorter, he probably.
So just tell them things we don't say. Yeah, donate to the neighbor that joins them. If you wanna give a piece of property away, give it to your neighbor.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly
That's
right.
exactly
I agree with you, because it's a,
You don't live
Now,
beside.
agree. That's exactly
This
right.
Ringo lot now, I think we're gonna look at it.
It's not a bad lot, but you got a huge gully beside it.
Yeah, but that lot,
County is not in the business of managing property unless, so that's just the way it is. That's.
well, let me ask a question. The library has wanted a place to have to put a library in Ringo.
I'm not sure 8/10 of an acre unless you buy some of those other lots beside it, but if you get one.
You could buy a little satellite.
Yeah. If
You
buy
take out
one
books
lot-
by drone.
I think you'd want a pretty public place for your library. I don't really think that there's a lot.
Ringo Road,
All right, watch out there.
It ain't a bad road.
I ain't got that thing you got out there. I don't know, we putting my
There's
spot
some
there.
developments right around this.
Yeah,
There's some nice houses
Good
out
property.
there.
I mean, this-
This is really nice house.
This is where staff going and looking at. Because this lot in Ringo, there's some subdivisions right around there.
Yeah. So you think there's a projection down the road that's gonna enhance? Not necessarily. If you get, like Mr. Blackstock said, you get a couple big fish, it might enhance with growth coming in.
Well, I think they
I
can
think
find
what-
somebody that would take that lot if they wanna give it to
And,
them.
and expediting, it's almost 8 o'clock, and I'm getting sleepy. And, I would make a motion that we direct staff to take a look at both properties and come back and tell us, you know, can see a use for it.
Give a recommendation.
Make a recommendation.
But I think we'd be safe if we do anything, get a phase one environmental.
Yeah.
I would never take a piece of property without phase one, because we found all kinds of mess before that you didn't know was there.
100% agree with that.
We inherited the liability with the free land. It cost $100,000 to clean it up.
I'll second his motion.
Okay, all right, motion by Mr. Blackstock, second by Dr. Miller, all in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, all right. Find the place you can get on the right property.
Now bring up a pretty picture.
All right, now, Mr. Ford, you've been waiting a long time for this one. Item C, acquisition, Ford Brothers Property, Blair School. Mr. Savage.
Yes, just in the briefest of background, this came back up when we were having our public hearings and having our discussion about selling or transferring the ownership of that old middle school in Blair. And as part of that conversation, Mr. Ford contacted me and said, can you tell me a little bit more about the project? And then he brought up again something that we've been aware of before, is that the existing soccer field, a portion of that is owned by the Ford brothers, and then the rest is a part of the school property. So in the future, we understand that that field will be cut off from the school if the school develops. But anyway, he just brought back to our attention that part of that field is still owned by the Fords, and he indicated, you know, we share that with the administration staff, which I did, and this meeting seems to be an opportunity for Mr. Ford to kind of give his perspective about that situation.
Okay, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, actually, I have a fairly long history with, when my father originally purchased the property that includes this, there was supposedly an agreement with, I think the school board at that time, that they would purchase some of the property, and it would have included all of it. Something happened in the board of supervisors, so that did not happen then. As I'm getting older and not keeping up with things as well, I realize, number one, we've got a liability. If somebody gets injured down there, and they find out it's on our property, that can happen. We have, over the years, provided the property for the county without any cost to it. We actually, there was a well, probably not on the piece of property showing, but there was a well dug to provide water for the school system. And it's the only way that school operated for a long time, because of the well that pulled water off our property. So we've got some history with a number of different things. And the last thing I'll say to you, the school at one point, that sewer system would not work very well. And there was sewage was coming out of the septic tanks onto our property. We didn't raise any big objection or call DEQ at the time, but that was an issue. Anyway, so our brothers and I at this point would like to at least sell 1 acre of that.
Mr. Ford mentions 1 acre, but just out of curiosity, you see the property lines here, and I just kind of went in and squared off some of those property lines to see what would it take to incorporate the field. I had to give the disclaimer, this is GIS, these lines are not exact, but what you see in blue picks up the end of the field, and that is roughly 1 acre.
It includes actually a paved basketball court that was used by the school over the years, and there are 2 trailers down there that have held different things over the years, and so they were tied to the school at the time.
I guess what on everybody's mind, do you have an idea in your mind what your secret?
We'll ask for 10,000.
You want that in a tax credit that you donated it, or?
No. I like cash. I like cash.
We got 2 pieces of property, one in Ringo and somewhere else.
Yeah, you want to trade?
I've got a piece of property that, my grandfather did something with in his trading over the years, that I've got a notice right now, we gotta figure out how to do something so somebody can get a loan for it, and that was done in 1946.
Is this essential to the continued operation of the soccer program?
Yeah.
They're playing
on this field.
Double.
Actually, he was down there, somebody was down there practicing, because I took a couple pictures of it today, so I went by. It actually touches the, one end of the field, it includes some of the soccer field, and the goal is, the way the picture looks, the goal is virtually in our property.
I'll make a motion that we direct staff to come up with the boundaries that we're interested in purchasing and have it appraised, and bring the appraisal back to us, and then we can negotiate with the forward and cost.
Would you also want to talk to the soccer league to see if they might participate in the purchase?
$10,000, I would think.
You talking about Ringo?
I don't think we want him tied.
They currently lease the field.
We own it, around it, right? Yeah, we don't want them.
Hold on a minute.
I'm sorry.
We're down here talking now, before you run off on me.
I don't
He's
want to
gonna-
spend $10,000.
He's gonna talk to his brothers about this lot in Lingo, that maybe we can want to trade it. So, you do.
Negotiations.
I like that too. Keep talking now.
You do that.
Yeah, I'll do it.
And we'll do our.
I'll need to talk to them and see.
Okay?
We might
That's not
have our
hard to
next
play golf
discussion
club
about
as we
this.
own. Well, of course, we're trying to sell it, but.
I know, but
We don't have a possible luck with it.
I'm not exactly sure where this lot is.
Watch your minutes.
Can you,
I ain't telling you to leave it.
can we
If
get
you
in
go
the
to
exact
Ringo
spot?
Road, you find house number 800. Tom, it'll be, Tom, which is that lot?
See, the golf club is 1,400.
Okay, this is 800.
Is that 458 or you go to the
No,
Ringo?
it's going towards the depot.
So you come from the depot, you get to 800.
Yeah. All right, the map. I got a better map here.
Now, I can't look at the road until, well, as well as I know Ringo, I can't look at the map and tell you where that
Okay,
is.
800 Ringo Road. Tom, is that house right there?
Do we need a motion, do?
It's a pond.
You know what? Direct staff.
Tom, if you go find 800, it's gonna be right there. There's
I mean, you like his motion, or just let it stand?
It's between this lot, Tom, and that house right there. I found it today by finding 800 Ringo Road.
Let me look at that lot.
Okay, just take that with you.
Okay, I'll withdraw the motion, and we'll have staff to discuss all available options and come back and bring us a recommendation from the closed
You
session.
withdraw your second, Dr. Miller?
Yeah,
Yes.
if I sell it for
12.
12, okay. Yeah. That's still working, yeah.
I think
It's
I
sitting
think
up
where that
high,
lot
too.
is. Boy, I think where that lot is.
Okay.
This house is on Ringo Road.
Mr. Ford, you good with that?
Yeah, we're working on that, yeah.
I was joking in the beginning, but I like the idea.
No,
Things just fall in place with that.
No, we'll look at that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just let us know. Okay, item D, staff reports. Ms. Miniman, Mr. Hicks.
Mr. Hicks, do you have anything under staff reports?
No, sir.
Okay, matters from committee members. You have anything, Dr. Miller? Mr. Blackstock?
No, I know they've gone, but I tell you, Mosley Architects did a bang-up job on the documents that they brought us. I've sent them a lot of these things over time. I do some of that work. They really went the extra mile here. And I'm really excited about this buy-in, finally getting that done.
Yeah.
If you go behind the pet center, check your soil. It's rough soil in that part of it, in that area. Anything down to White Oak Mountain, we did the grading for Chatham Middle School. We did the grading Kangaroo. There's
Rock.
There can be rock and it's got soil on top of the rock, turns to what we call pipe clay, and it is brutal.
3 foot down, it's terrible.
It can be it can be 3 feet down, but we shot rock on the school. We ran fans through mud that you couldn't even get them to go through over there, and it's pushing dozer. It's a region that really just has some bad soil, so they work.
We appreciate the insight. Is that it? Anybody got anything, David? I'd just like to thank everybody. I think we had a very good discussion. Got a lot of got our kind of ideas going where we want to go or don't want to go, but we know the best, we're learning the best option. That jail's been put off since I've been on the board of supervisors because of the astronomical cost, but I think we made some good gainway where we want to go. So thank everybody that's coming out. Sorry, thank you, Mr. Ford, being. Dismissed.